What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to today's video. For those of you who have been around for a while, you may know that every now and then I like to do videos on things like mechanical keyboards. My content does primarily surround software engineering, but every now and then I like to throw in some other technology type videos as well. Because really I like doing this because I enjoy it, and I enjoy keyboards and pretty much all things technology, so sometimes I like to do other types of videos too. I think that I'm going to start kind of classifying these as tech talks just to keep them separate. Today we're going to be talking about the Keychron K6 and why I strongly dislike this mechanical keyboard. So before I get into why I don't like this keyboard, first I'm going to give you a general overview of the specs of the specific Keychron K6 model that I bought. If you're not very familiar with the Keychron K6, this is a pre-built, fairly entry-level mechanical keyboard that you can pick up from a variety of places. You can either pick it up from the Keychron shop itself, or you can pick it up on Amazon like I did, because at the time it was back ordered on Keychron, so I bought it from Amazon. Now the Keychron K6 is a 60% roughly keyboard. It has 68 keys on it. This does come in multiple versions. The version that I bought is the hot swappable version with the aluminum frame. This is pretty much the highest version of the K6 that you can buy. Like I said, more towards the top end of it. I believe it cost me just over $100 to pick this up on Amazon. On top of the hot swappable option, this does have full RGB lighting with multiple RGB settings. And you also get to choose the switches that it comes with when you pick up this keyboard. I believe that you have 3 choices if I recall, and it's usually between Gateron Blues, Gateron Browns, and Gateron Red Linears. Personally, I went with the Red Linears because I already have a set of Gateron Browns. I really wasn't sure that I was going to like the switches in it regardless of which ones I got. I kind of planned on replacing the switches anyways, hence why I got the hot swappable version. Usually my problem with these switches like Gateron Blues, Gateron Browns, and Gateron Reds is usually that the spring weight is too light. I believe the spring weight on all of those switches is usually around 45 grams for like the actuation force, which is pretty light. Personally, I like really heavy switches, and I also like I tend to lean towards clicky switches, although I'm usually open to trying different types of switches. If you've seen my video on my Lily 58 Pro, I use Kale Box Navies in it, which are pretty much about as loud as it gets as far as clicky switches, and the actuation force on those is very high as well. I think it's like I don't know, I think it's like 70 something grams actuation force and a bottom out of 90. It's very stiff springs by comparison, but that's the kind of switches that I tend to lean towards. So there's a number of things about this keyboard that I actually just really don't like, and honestly it's a lot of these added together is why I hardly ever used this keyboard after I got it. I did give it a try a couple times after switching out some parts on it, and I really just couldn't stick with it for that long, and always ended up going back to either my Lily 58 or my Plank. Honestly, the most annoying thing to me about this keyboard, and I noticed it right off the bat, was the keycaps. The keycaps quality felt terrible. They almost feel like they have this like rubbery film over them, and I believe that this is because the keycaps for this keyboard I believe are ABS plastic and not double shot PBT, and it's kind of hard to describe. There's almost like no texture to it. If you've ever used like a double shot PBT keycap, you know there's almost like a little bit of texture to it, and you can just feel the quality, whereas these feel almost like a ultra smooth, like rubber like material, and honestly I'm just not a fan of it at all. It was very bothersome to me, and one of the first things that I did upon using it was swapping out my keycaps. And you may notice that I have the keycaps that it came with on it right now, and that's mostly because the fact that I don't really use this keyboard regularly. I move my keycap sets over to other keyboards that I do use on a regular basis. I do currently have the Gateron Linear Reds in it. For quite a while I did switch this over to Duroc Purples. They're a much heavier linear switch. Changing out the switches and the keycaps did kind of help me a little bit in looking past some of the deficiencies of this keyboard. Or not even really so much deficiencies, just things that I really didn't like about it. But if you do plan on picking up one of these keyboards, I would plan on having a backup set of keycaps. Something more stylish. Definitely try to get something that's PBT double shot, and on top of that I would plan on having a different set of switches, and definitely spending the extra money for the hot swap version. Now this last one is kind of a nitpick here, but just one other thing that kind of bothered me about the quality of this keyboard is the aluminum frame. You pay extra for the aluminum frame, and I do like that. It's definitely nice to have this aluminum frame around it. The thing that bothered me about it is that the entire case of the keyboard is not aluminum. There's an aluminum side rail here, but the base is still plastic. Like, why not just make it all aluminum? I don't know. I feel like they were just kind of cheaping out on materials. Like, I get it, it's an entry level mechanical keyboard, but if you're gonna like spend the money to do an aluminum side rail, just make the whole case aluminum and just make it one piece. I mean, I don't feel like that's really asking a whole lot. All you need is a metal plate on the bottom. But again, that's a nitpick personally for me based on the quality of the keyboard. I feel like personally, for the price that I spent on this, I probably could have built something a little better. I probably could have got a full metal case, maybe a new one, maybe a used one on Marketplace, but I'm sure that I could have found like a full metal case somewhere. But yeah, those are my nitpicks. I do want to compliment the RGBs and the RGB quality of this keyboard though. However, this is one thing to take into account on the factory keycaps that come on the Keychron keyboards. The RGBs do shine through the lettering on the keys, and if you swap out the keycaps and you don't get keycaps that have basically like shine through friendly letters, I'm not exactly sure what the phrase is for that, the RGBs will not shine through on your keycaps. You'll essentially just have RGBs in between the keycaps, which is fine for a lot of people. It's not a huge issue. It's really just an aesthetic thing, but that's just something to take into account. Overall though, the brightness and quality of the RGBs looks really nice, and it comes with over 15 different settings for the RGBs in various colors and touch sensitive lighting patterns. Now, I know that it seems like I've knocked on this keyboard pretty much this whole video. Honestly, for an entry-level keyboard, it's alright. It's probably good enough for your first mechanical keyboard, unless you're going to be like me and you're just going to dive in and build a really nice high-end keyboard right off the bat. That's always an option too, but if you're just looking for something easy off the shelf and it's, you know, you're not spoiled to a custom built keyboard already, then this probably isn't that big of a deal. I didn't like it personally, and these are my own opinions on it, but the reason behind that I think is mostly because I started with a much more expensive custom keyboard that I built myself. So it doesn't really always feel fair to compare the quality of those, but you know, here we are. Well guys, that's pretty much all I have to say today about the Keychron K6. I would love to hear your thoughts on the Keychron K6 or any other Keychron keyboards in the comments down below. If you enjoyed today's video or you found today's video helpful, please be sure to hit the like button to help with the YouTube algorithm and help other people find my content. Until next time, guys.